Awesome. And we are live building a company from the ground up. The grind, the growth, the marketing, the brand, the systems, and AI. We have a kind of a belief system that either we're going to push you up or we're going to push you out. I don't want to be around 5 other people that aren't pushing themselves to succeed. Success isn't about taking, but giving value first. Compensation follows contribution always. This is true authenticity. It's the truth. Every week, this is our story. We share with you our journey. We share with you our scars.
Please welcome your host, Ty Cobb-Backer.
We are joined by Adam McChesney, founder of Builders of Authority, someone who has built businesses from the ground up, sold an auto glass company, and is now involved in the roofing space. Hopefully, I'm not divulging too much information here, but today we're going to talk about what it really takes to build something from zero, the hours, the sacrifice, the marketing, the brand, the systems, and how AI might fit into all of that. So Adam, my man, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again, and grateful to be here.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And we're grateful to have you on the show for sure. It's been 2, maybe 3 years.
It's been a minute. Lots happened.
Yeah, same here. Same with us. I think we were getting ready to pack up and head on like the roofing convention tour. We actually, at that time, I remember we were in a warehouse, like a big ass warehouse that we had to rent. Unfortunately, had to rent the whole thing out to pack all of our equipment in that we were taking on the road with us. Because for 2 solid roofing conference seasons, we traveled to every single roofing conference with our podcast. And so it was just easier for us to lease out a warehouse, set everything up, fix what was broken, because, hauling everything to all these shows. And we had a pretty good setup then. But we actually were live with you at that warehouse, and we ended up hosting like a company party there. I think maybe the day before, or even during. I think we did like a live broadcast in studio audience type of party for our company, and we were going live with you while that was all going on in the background. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So it's good. So I'm sure a lot of things have changed. We talked briefly yesterday about some of your up and coming things that you got going on. I'm super excited to talk to you about some of that. So let's dive right back in. Let's dive right into all of this. So, when people hear, I want to build a business from the ground up, they usually picture, freedom. They usually picture like success, but when you lived it, what did it actually demand of you? Okay. And from the beginning, give us from the beginning, what did it demand of you and the sacrifice that you had to go through?
Yeah. I mean, I think the word sacrifice is the best way to explain it. Is you have to sacrifice the life you previously had in order to get the life that you want. And so since we've last talked, I've rebuilt a second marketing agency after exiting my first one back in 2024. We sold our auto glass company that I literally built from scratch from a simple Weebly website I built in 2018 that I was originally selling the leads for to a local guy. And then there were so many leads, he didn't want to pay me what it was worth. And I owned the asset. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go get in the auto glass space. And then since then, we sold that company on October 1 of 2025. And on the same day, launched our roofing company that we're equity partners up in Long Island, New York. So a lot of people, right, they want something, but they're not necessarily always willing to pay the price required. And so sacrifice, I think, is the best way that I can explain it, of that old version of who you previously were in order to be required to actually be the person that is needed to run the new company or run multiple companies or play a role inside of being a business owner and having equity in multiple companies.
Yeah, man. Wow. You nailed that, man, for sure. Because, man, I've done a lot of the same things. And that's why I use the word strategically, sacrifice, because you're sacrificing, your time away from your family. A lot of times you don't know which direction to go in, and you're working on the wrong things. And, trying to navigate through, those early stages of entrepreneurship, I know for me, it wasn't easy. And I was afraid to ask a lot of questions because I wanted people to think that I knew all the right answers, and I didn't, however. But when you think back to that stage, was it more exciting or more overwhelming for you back then?
I think probably excitement over the overwhelming part, because anytime you have a new thing, right, you have no idea how it's going to go, but you are so full of energy and so full of optimism that you have all the answers. You think so, at least, right? And then when you're in the midst of it, that's when it becomes, overwhelming. Right now, our agency, 100 clients, 42 team members, that's all been grown in the last 18 months. We sell the auto glass company. That was like my baby project. And then I become an equity partner in a roofing company that's up in Long Island, New York, and I'm in St. Louis. And so you see kind of the other side of the coin in the contracting space, which is typically most of our clients in the marketing agency. And you just are constantly learning, but you're constantly having to be overwhelmed a little bit and evolve, because everything you're doing, like I wake up every single day right now and I'm at a new level than I've ever been at before. So you're going to have that overwhelming aspect, and it's about how you can control your mindset, how you control your body, how you control how you show up on a daily basis and control the controllables.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Early on, you had mentioned becoming, how did you say it? Becoming something that you didn't realize you had to become. Something like that. And that resonates with me, because there were skills and mindsets and things that I didn't even know existed. And I didn't even know who I needed to become at that time. So let's unpack that a little bit. So give us some description of like some of the early struggles in the beginning, where like you had to learn something new about yourself and or some type of technology or tools or techniques that you had to go through in order to get through that hump.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes back down to, and I can't remember where I saw this quote. A bunch of business owners were sharing this quote maybe like a month or 2 months ago. And it might've been Sarah Blakely that shared it. It was something along the lines of business ownership is going to highlight your weaknesses or your trauma or all of your, pitfalls. Right. And I don't think that there's a better way to explain all of that. And so as you grow the business, you add more team members, you add more clients, you add more overhead, you add more revenue, you add all of those things. And then you have multiple businesses now that you're involved in. It does require you, if you want to be a business owner, to actually delegate and trust other people. And then if you don't do that, right, it will showcase and highlight and bring to the forefront your weaknesses. And so in doing that the first time go around building businesses, I really struggled to delegate and to trust other people. Not because I knew that I was necessarily the best at everything inside the business, but I was scared to relinquish control and then give up that control and then delegate properly. So I've kind of been forced into doing it now because I've learned some of those hard lessons building an agency the second time. But it's also just been that aspect of learning from my mistakes and learning that, hey, you need to offload some of these things from your plate sooner rather than later, because one, I know what I enjoy and don't enjoy. And two, I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. The quicker you can learn those things and then take action on them is probably the biggest piece of advice that I'd share to somebody. And I see it a lot with contractors where they don't want to move themselves too far away from certain aspects of the business. And it's not necessarily because they love doing it. It's that they struggle to delegate and relinquish the control because they're trying to be perfect. Well, when you do that, you're going to reach a ceiling because you can't be everywhere inside the business. And if something happens to you, you want to take a vacation, you want to go to a trade show or an event to level up your life and business. Well, the business doesn't necessarily run without you, and you've kind of just created a job for yourself.
Yeah. Amen to that. And I think a lot of us struggle with that, learning how to delegate, because for me, I thought, nobody can do it as well as I can. and I don't know if that was just fear or arrogance or ego, probably all of it for me. And I think the biggest thing after I had learned that, I needed to start delegating. My mom actually said something to me. She had lived with us right up to the day that she passed. We were taking care of her. My wife was actually taking care of her mostly. And we were out to eat one night. And she had passed, I think this past February was 14 years. So going back, 14 plus years ago when she was still with us, we were sitting at, I think a Texas Roadhouse, and my phone was everything. That was the business. It was like I had all the calls came through it, everything, all the issues, all the wins, the losses, the stresses, everything came through my cell phone. And I was always on my phone, and it rang. We were sitting at dinner, and at that moment I was beating myself up like bad, because here's my wife who's exhausted from, helping take care of my mom. And at that time, Jana was with me full time in the business. And we decided, around that same time, my oldest son, just had our first grandchild, and my mom, we decided, hey, come live with us. So Jana removed herself from the business and became like a caretaker for my mom and a stay-at-home grandmother. So I was feeling bad for her. I wasn't spending enough time with my mom, and just I felt like I was failing at everything at work. Like I was spread so thin, and I was doing 15 different jobs, literally 15 different jobs that created, 12 full-time jobs once the light bulb went off. But she said to me two things. The phone rang. I looked at her. I looked at Jana. I looked at my phone. I was like, shit, do I actually get up and answer the phone? I elected to hit the red button, which I never did back then. And she looked at me and she said, Tyrus, that's my full name, Tyrus. Only my mom calls me that. You need some help. And man, she had no idea how much help I really needed, between mental health, physical, spiritual, all of it. And she said, the second thing that came out of her mouth is that life is entirely too short. So at that point in time, I went on a mission. And I guess my question for you out of all of that, so I went on a mission to find the right people to delegate things to. So when you were talking, it made me think, my next question to you, and I didn't want to cut you off, is how did you know that you were delegating to the right people? Yeah. Because I know for me, I went to the ringer at first. So how did you know you had the right people around you to start delegating stuff to?
Man, I think we've all go through the ringer. You don't know. And I think that's a hard thing too, is because you're hiring somebody, and you're hiring multiple people to take different things off your plate. And you're like, I want it to be perfect because the only other person that's really touched it has been me or somebody close to me. And so there is going to be trial and error. There are going to be people that you have to fire, or that they leave, or you just need to part ways with for whatever that reason might be. And so part of it is just knowing that is still a possibility. Like, you can interview the greatest person and they can tell you all the things that you want to hear, and then they could even be good for a period of time and it not work out. And so part of it is, that was my mindset the first time. Is like, I thought, oh my gosh, it's got to be perfect. And I got lucky with some early hires, but then I had some not so good hires. And so now I just go into it knowing that, hey, I'm going to try to make the best decision with the information that I have to put those right people in the right places, but that it still might not work out. And so I think changing my mindset on that has came from the lessons, the mistakes, and the money that's been, invested, if you will, in some of those wrong places. But I think that's entirely like normal and okay. What's not okay is waiting too long, or waiting for a perfect time, or thinking that it's going to go perfect, and doing it like that. That's the part that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what safety nets do you put in place if it doesn't work out?
Yeah. So I think now it's easier than ever before to build out SOPs, processes and systems, checks and balances, KPIs, with all the technology that's out there. So I always look at it as, I'm building with this person, but I'm really building whatever it is behind the scenes. So in that way, I still know what's going on. The rest of the team still knows what's going on. And if somebody, we had somebody that had to have surgery a couple weeks ago, and they were out for 2 weeks. Well, they're not gone forever, but they had this surgery that we weren't anticipating doing that. If we didn't have those SOPs, if we didn't have guidance, if we didn't have structure, that would have sucked too. So I think part of it is just building the system behind the business so that the business can operate like no differently than you're building out your business as a business owner to make sure it can run without you as the CEO. You need to have those checks and balances, those processes and systems in place for any position inside of your company.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That was definitely something we went from real quick. I should say, no, it took forever. We went from, hearsay training. I call it hearsay, where somebody comes in, tell them what to do, and then that's it. And then you come back and they didn't do what you asked them to do. And they're like, well, you didn't tell me that. And it's like, well, yeah, I did. Well, you just didn't listen to me. We document everything. Document. I mean, as if they're 4-year-olds. You gotta write things out, do videos, looms, whatever you have to do to document everything. And like you had mentioned, SOPs, KPIs, and core values. Those are our 3 pillars, our three legs on our stool. And that's something that took me a long time to create, was, because once you go down that rabbit hole of SOPs, man, it never stops. They're never static to begin with. It's just like, you got to start someplace. So if anybody's out there listening right now and you get overwhelmed, and I know I did, I got overwhelmed. Like, where do I start with the SOPs? You know what I mean? Like, everything needs an SOP. I mean, from higher onboarding SOP to offboarding SOPs to handling complaints over the phone, I mean, everything in between, like from the sales process to there's so many different things. And I'll be honest with you, I think I drug my feet for the longest time because I didn't really know where to start. And once we started, it started going then. And then we realized that we needed an SOP on how to create an SOP. And it was just like, there was so much, and it still is. It's very fluid, as what we did last year is not the same as what we're doing this year, kind of thing. And because things evolve, things change, technology gets smarter, we need less people to do things faster. It's just that all these things change and stuff. So once you were putting, getting back to the early days, you were putting in the hours and you were surviving that early grind. I guess the next question becomes, how did you actually start to get traction in your business?
So I think when it comes to getting traction in the business, I had to get very, very uncomfortable about putting myself out there. So my background's in medical device sales, and I sold CPAP equipment, devices, masks, ventilators before they were super popular in COVID. And I managed a $25 million a year territory in the state of Missouri. And so with that, though, in the CPAP space, there's one competitor that I have on CPAPs. There's 2 or 3 competitors on masks, and then like a couple of different competitors on ventilators. So my whole goal was I needed to go grow my book of business. A lot of it was meeting with physicians, upselling people, getting them to script our stuff, and then trying to get durable medical equipment companies to switch over to us. But people already knew who we were, right? And so they had to also buy from one of those options. It wasn't like there's 10 options even. And so when I went out back in 2020 and started to really push me being a full-time entrepreneur doing digital marketing, there's hundreds of thousands of options that people could go when they're hiring somebody for marketing, right? And some people don't have anybody doing marketing. So it's not like everybody needs what I offer too. And so I had to get on social media. And for the last 5.5 years, I've been posting nearly every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I have my own podcast, my own YouTube channel. I do a lot of different content. And so it required me to step outside of my comfort zone because nobody knew who I was, right? And so that's where I got a lot of growth and traction early on, but I just didn't quit. A lot of people get seduced by success, right? It doesn't matter if it's marketing. It doesn't matter if it's sales. It doesn't matter what aspect of the business is in. You have a little bit of success and you're like, well, do I really need to keep doing this? Like, I'm at a good spot now. And I just had the mindset from day one is like, I'm going to keep doing this time and time again, no matter how many times I don't want to do it, no matter how many times I make a post and it gets very few likes or generates no business. I'm going to keep doing it because I have enough data to know that if I keep doing it, whatever I'm looking to accomplish in the future is going to be a big component of that personal brand, business branding aspect.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I love that. That's so good. And you talked about consistency and the not overnight success of putting yourself out there continuously for 5 years straight, because I think a lot of people, ask that question like, well, how long do I have to do this? And it's like forever. This is kind of what you signed up for. And if that's not what you signed up for, maybe this isn't for you. So, and that's where things start to get really interesting because, once you get a little bit of traction or attraction, I guess, marketing stops feeling optional and starts to become the engine. And I want to unpack that a little bit with you, what actually drives attention and trust. When you're looking at building a company today, how important is marketing compared to like operations and sales?
Yeah. Well, I think today in its day and age, it's easier to get traction with marketing than ever before if you stay consistent, put enough money to it, give it enough time and runway. Like there's enough attention to still be had out there. But on the flip side of that, right, people have been in their ways for a very long period of time. I'm not going to invest in this. I'm not going to post on social media. I'm not going to go do that. But you're seeing companies now, and I think you've seen it between all the different private equity stuff and all the different ways people start businesses now, whether that's franchises, again, private equity buying up businesses, people that have no experience in an industry starting a roofing company. It's really more marketing and sales organizations, marketing first, typically, or sales first, that then add in all the other layers that just so happen to be in the roofing industry, in the deck building space, whatever that might be. And so it used to be you had to be so good at the craft and an expert at the craft in order to build the business and be successful. Now it's kind of the other side of the coin where people are going into markets and just doing really good marketing, and then they're able to sell from there to make everything else worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. A long time ago, someone said to me, you're no longer a roofing company, that does marketing. You're a marketing company that does roofing. And that really clicked with me because we really have had to become, especially in our industry, our market is so saturated with roofing contractors and everybody's got the same message, the same, logo looking house over their name. And unfortunately, I'm guilty of that too. However, I probably have been in business much longer than everybody else. And I do got some regrets about the logo and stuff. And we did rebrand a little bit several years ago, but I didn't want to get too far away from it because it works. But we really had to put ourselves out there and figure out a way to separate ourselves, to break through all that noise and static out there and differentiate ourselves. And I think there's a lot of technology out there that's helped us along the way, to be able to do that, to get through. And like you said, we stayed consistent with it and we still do, stay consistent. And, I didn't realize how important, excuse me, personal brand versus, the company brand. I didn't realize how important that was till, several years ago, and putting myself out there and continuously putting myself in uncomfortable situations, like, just as simple as like doing the podcast, how uncomfortable that was for me for the longest time. And sometimes, quite frankly, it still is, but that's why I still do it, because I'm continuously putting myself in uncomfortable, situations. Whether it's an interview, not knowing anything about that person, doing my due diligence, doing my research, doing my, it's work. Like I can't just plug and play. But the payoff to that is, we're on YouTube, which is connected to our company brand. And that gives a lot of video, a lot of content, a lot of things. And it actually gives us the authority in our space over just about anybody in our market. It's like, wow, they Google us. You can Google my name and it outranks Ty Cobb, the baseball player. Literally does. When you Google Ty Cobb, at least in our area, I don't know what it is around the world or the country, but in our area, if you Google Ty Cobb, or Tyrus or TC Backer, Ty Cobb doesn't even show up for like 15 pages. And he was like the world's greatest baseball player, so that tells you something, but he didn't do as many live videos as I have either. He didn't have that technology back then, but anyhow, that was good. So I guess moving over to personal brand versus, is personal brand moving faster today than a company brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tell people all the time, it'll take you about 90 days of consistency building out your personal brand, and it'll take about 18 months to do that on the business branding side. Now, a lot of that has to go down to the algorithms on social media, Facebook, trying to eventually get you as a business to get frustrated and say, hey, I'm just going to pay ad dollars. So that's kind of the behind the scenes there. Now, there's some outliers to that. If you have something that goes viral, or you're just a kind of a diamond in the rough type of unique business or situation. But in reality, like, people still, especially with all the AI stuff that's out there, people still buy from people and businesses that they know, like, and trust. Mm-hmm. And so when they can connect to the person behind the business and the person that's creating content, you have an unlimited amount of potential there. And so I gave one of my roofing clients here in St. Louis, I presented to their sales team on Wednesday this week. And with that, right, we do all their digital marketing. So we do their website stuff, SEO, paid ads, the fun stuff, right? But I told their sales reps, I said, hey, you guys as a company, right, have 700 plus Google reviews. You're working at a company that has an incredible brand. And some of you aren't posting at all on social media. You have people that you're friends with, family members, people that you've been maybe friends with on Facebook for 10 years that don't even know what you do. And so the more consistent you can post, right, you're not just going to eventually probably earn their business, but when they know what you do and somebody else in their network posts on Facebook, in a Facebook group, whatever, and says, hey, I need X, Y, and Z done with my roof, you're likely going to have a chance that they're going to think of you and then go tag you. So it's about creating that ever evolving flywheel that it's not, people ask me all the time, business branding or personal branding, what's better? Say both. You kind of have both of them if you want to build something, especially as a business owner, that's worthwhile beyond just who you are. But the low-hanging fruit is in your personal brand and your reputation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. So what kind of actual content builds trust?
So I think it's not it can't be all about the business, right? So I typically tell people, if you're going to post a couple times a week, make sure like 80 to 90% of it is not necessarily you just posting a picture of a project you just completed and saying, hey, here, come buy my stuff. But it's about tying in the personal aspect of who you are, what you're doing in business, going out, highlighting other businesses, getting people to know who you are beyond the business is extremely important. And then you weave in 10 to 20% of the time, hey, here's cool stuff that we're working on. Here's what we do. Here's why we're the best. But then in that, right, you got to make sure that you're continuing to show up and provide value, right? So education, not selling, storytelling, not selling, answering questions that are frequently asked from your customers, not selling, being active in the local community, giving back in ways that don't necessarily on paper look like you're selling anything, but you're getting your brand out there so more people know, like, and trust you.
Right on. No, I love that. I love that so much. And I was hoping you were going to say something along those lines, because I know when we did our first Fearless 44 challenge, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Yeah. That requires us to go live for 2 minutes for 44 straight days. And I still hate it. I still like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about for like 44 days? But not even knowing what that was actually doing for not just me personally, but for my brand and for the company in itself. And I wasn't there selling myself. I was with my grandchildren. If we were on vacation, if we were wherever we were, was usually my topic of like, yeah, we're here chilling out with and so many people just loved that raw, authentic, it wasn't pre-scripted. It was just, and my wife, and she's so adorable too. And she's like, oh, man, she can't stand doing it, but she doesn't know how authentic it is, because she usually still watches our grandchildren, almost three. We got three, two more on the way, five total. So she's kind of grandfathered, no pun intended, into the stay-at-home grandmother now. But so she was a lot of the times with our oldest, or actually our third grandchild, and those two were just a freaking riot. And people would love it. Like, people were like, "Oh my God, you guys are done tomorrow. No, please do another one." She was getting more traction from them than I was, because those two were just so hysterical and so unscripted and so real. And I think people can really relate to that, where, a grandmother struggles, a mother struggles, the cuteness of a grandchild, just the family life, and they want to know who you are. Because for the longest time, I posted only business stuff. Nobody even knew anything about me. And it's like, yeah, you can trust a brand, but man, you can go so much deeper when you're actually posting, family pictures of your dog, things like that. But like video content, I think, for me, at least from my experience, like the Fearless 44, or going live on a roof, literally going live. Like, I've gotten so much, attention or attraction from going live. And of course, posting pictures, on your website and stuff like that. That's all good stuff. And and hopefully it's organic stuff. But I think the more organic that you can keep things, I think the more real that you keep it, I think the more traction you're going to get.
Absolutely. It's all about it. Well, and again, even more so today now with all the AI slop that's out there, is authenticity is going to be at some point the differentiator. And it's always kind of been the differentiator, but it was like, oh, hey, now everybody's, showing up on camera. Everybody's doing it. Well, now there's so much AI stuff that's out there. The AI was kind of the secret sauce in the beginning, and now it's like so overwhelming that it's going to go back to the human interaction and then go back to the authenticity.
Absolutely. Yep. I agree for sure. I do have some AI questions for you, but I don't want to get there yet. I want to shift from lead gen to company building first.
Yep.
Because your name and just that brand. I love brand. I've always been a brand kind of guy, and versus marketing. But anyhow, so I want to shift from lead gen to company building. What trends would break a company first? What tends to break first when a company starts to grow? Like, from your experience, like, what was breaking?
Yeah. Usually the operations and the client experience, because people can get excited, right? Hey, we're bringing in more leads, we're selling more, we're doing all that. But if the production side can't keep up, or the operations side can't keep up, that's where things tend to break. And then even before that, typically, is like lead handling. So if you get more leads in, right, but you're not responding to them, yeah, the numbers might look great on the marketing side, but if you're not actually able to answer the phone, send out estimates, do all that stuff, that's going to be equally as negative to the company. So usually, as that happens, something breaks, and it's usually the back end of the business.
For sure. So what was the first hire that really changed things for you?
So the first time in business, it was somebody that became my director of operations that started to take off a lot of the familiar with the EOS, the integrator aspects of the business. So that was running my first agency, first key hire over there. And then this time around, the first person I hired was just an executive assistant. And so that was super impactful. It was almost what you get out of an integrator or somebody in a director of operations role or a COO type role. Obviously, without all of those responsibilities, but just starting to delegate the little things that were taking up my time to be able to go do what I do best. And so I read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, and that kind of changed my thought process around everything. So two different kind of angles I've taken, and they both worked out.
No doubt. Where do you think most business owners wait too long to delegate?
I think in the sales side, especially if somebody's been selling their entire life, right? And that's something that was the last thing I delegated really this time around too, is one, I like selling, I'm good at it. And it's also comfortable for me. So a lot of business owners are sales oriented individuals. And so it's usually the last thing that they take off of their plate. And some people still do it. And again, it kind of goes back to the aspect of if you go away, vacation, something happens to you, you get sick, even if the operations is good, you have a project manager, you have all your crews, et cetera, the marketing's working fine, but you're the one that has to close the deal. That can be difficult as well. So I'd say that aspect of it. And then the first thing that they usually struggle to do, but a lot of people are easier to let go of, that is the actual work itself. Like you got to get away from that in order to truly grow a business. And then eventually you got to stop selling.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I know. I agree. Sales for me was tough. Like I said, everything went through my phone, and there was a lot of clients that would only want to deal with me too.
Yep.
There early on, it was really hard to get them away from me and get them to trust, my right-hand man or whoever at that time that I had hired to kind of fill my shoes in a couple of different aspects of things. And I didn't realize how many bottlenecks that I created within the company. Mm-hmm. And so how do I want to say this? How do you know whether a bottleneck is a people problem or a system problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think when you realize it's a people problem, and as the business owner, you're typically creating a lot of those bottlenecks, as you mentioned. Usually when you bring somebody else in, so we found a whole slew of bottlenecks in our sales process. Once I brought a salesperson in, that's, hey, this is all I'm doing all day long. You're getting in my way here. You're doing this wrong. We have a process for this, and you're the owner and you're not even following it. Because as the owner, we're like, I've been doing it this way all along. It works just fine. Let's figure out the rest later. So usually it's when you figure out it's a system problem when you bring another person into it. You realize it's a people problem when you have that system ready to go. You put somebody in that system, you have clear and defined KPIs, and they're just not meeting it. Mm-hmm. So usually that's where you find it's a people problem, where you give them all the tools and resources to be successful, and they're still not hitting their numbers. So those are kind of the two different aspects there.
Yeah, I love that. I never knew if it was a people problem until we had systems and processes in place. And with having systems and processes in place, now if either the system and process might need tweaked, or if it's a people problem, a person's people problem can be anything from incompetence to lack of training to, and it helped us identify, especially early on, like, is my training crappy? Am I not training well enough? Are they not getting it? Because I'm not one apt to, fire or let go people right away, but I never knew what the issue was until at least we started to document something, whether it was right or wrong, like just document things. And I'm saying that to anybody out here listening that might be thinking about starting a business, or somebody that's early on in business, not, wondering why they can't grow. And it's first and foremost, you're probably not delegating enough stuff, surrounding yourself around smarter people in your business, okay, that are better at, certain aspects and tasks, and I always revert back to, website design. Could I design our own website? Yes, I could definitely do that. But why would I do that when it would probably take me 30 days when I can hire a company or an individual within the company that would probably take 3 days and we could start getting Google reviews? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I can do all of these things, but I'm not very good at it. And it takes me twice as long. And I think when I really started to identify those things where it was like, I stopped looking at how am I going to do all of this and started looking at it in terms of like, who am I going to get to do all of this for me?
Yep.
Essentially. And then all of a sudden, then I started realizing I went from solopreneur to entrepreneur, because now I'm employing all of these people and I'm giving them an opportunity to grow, and sometimes I find myself getting in the mix of things, and I find it very selfish I found it to be very selfish because, okay, I'm going to use snow plowing as an example. In the winter months, we do snow plowing. Well, I get all geared up and I'm like, yeah, no, I'll do it. I want to do it. And it's kind of like, well, that's kind of messed up when I know Denny needs the hours.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like now I actually get to step back and say, you know what, Denny, go and plow some snow. And I know it's not very technical or anything like that, but it's me. I don't want to take away from anybody. And it's like today I get to empower other people and give them responsibility, and they hold me accountable. Because I got to make sure I'm providing enough work for everybody. So I love business. Business is such an amazing thing, and entrepreneurship has been one of the greatest things that I've ever got to experience. A lot of ebbs, a lot of flows, a lot of learning experiences, a lot of stepping into very uncomfortable situations, and growing. Growing has been a continuous journey that I've been on, and becoming somebody that I never even knew I could be, or had to be if I wanted to sustain the longevity of a company. And God forbid I would hire somebody else smarter than me. So I got to stay sharp so I can at least be as equally as smart. And so I can speak intelligently to them about certain situations that might pop off every now and then. But anyhow, so if a business owner gets stuck because everything is still ran through them, what do you think the first thing is that they need to fix?
Usually themselves.
I was going to say the same damn thing.
And so that kind of goes through an audit process, right? Like even Dan Martell talks about it in that book. You hire a business coach, join a mastermind, they're going to tell you a lot of the same things, right? So you have to be writing down, right, a list of things and putting pen to paper and naming it so you can then tame it of what is holding you back. Things that you tangibly know, right, that are doing that. And that could be, habits that you have personally. That could be habits or things that you're doing inside the business. And I always ask, or I always tell people, it's like, ask other people that know you well, like people that are inside of your company. Where am I making your life and job more difficult? And it's not maybe things you're adamantly doing on purpose, but they know, right, things that you could be doing differently or allowing them to take things off your plate. So you can be better as the business owner and the business can run more efficiently. The second thing to that is asking for help. Go find somebody that's doing what you want to do and ask them. Most people don't have the courage to do that, or they're ashamed, or there's ego associated to that. I joined my first mastermind a month in to being an entrepreneur full time, because I knew that I wanted to condense the amount of time it was going to take me to go get some of these other places. And so you have to be willing, vulnerable, and opportunistic about doing the work required to get to that next level. But it starts with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great response. That's exactly what was going through my mind when I asked you that question, because I know for a fact I was the first thing that needed to be fixed.
Yep,
for sure. I had to get humble or be humbled. And I think I was more so getting humbled, by being tumbled most of the time, yeah, and I still do. Sometimes I definitely get in the way and need to learn to get out of the way. And, great leaders know how to also follow too. And, and again, I love nerding out on entrepreneurship and leadership and stuff like that. But anyhow, so I also think this is where the conversation changes a little bit into 2026, because of today's technology. And I hear a lot of business owners not liking AI, they're afraid of it and things like that. So it's forcing, I think, owners to rethink how they need to operate. So I guess digging into with you, because I know you nerd out on AI quite a bit. At least I hope you do, but I know you do, because you're that kind of person. And being on the marketing and brand awareness forefront, where do you see AI creating the most practical leverage for business owners right now?
So the mindset behind it needs to be efficiency versus replacement. And so what I mean by that is find what, again, is taking up the most of your time, where there's the bottlenecks, ask your team the same thing, and then go put that actual issue with tangible things that AI can then interpret and allow it to spit back ways in which you can become more efficient. So we're talking about SOPs before. A lot of times, right, you're sitting there and you're like, man, I got to write out this SOP. I got to go do this thing. Talk into any one of the AI things and say, hey, I'm needing an SOP with this desired outcome. Here's our business, where we're at, who the team members are involved, and just talk into it. It's going to spit it out in 90 seconds or less, and it's going to be way better than you would ever do yourself. And somebody else is going to be able to go look at that and say, okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. From there, right, a lot of people are trying to get the shiny object. What can I go replace? Can I have it do my bookkeeping? Can I have it do my marketing? Can I have it create all my social media posts? Can I have it be my business coach? Can I have it be my lawyer? Right? Can I have it like that's where everybody's going? But there is a whole slew of things people aren't utilizing it for to become more efficient in the behind the scenes stuff. So in our company right now, all three companies that we have either full ownership in, like the marketing company or some of the contracting companies that we have equity in, it's all about how can we empower our team to go do more with technology and information that's out there to make it more efficient, so that way they can have more time doing the things that they actually need to be doing. Not how can I go replace people to just go do all of the stuff that otherwise people would do.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you think that people are overusing AI?
I think a lot of people are wasting time, right? So they're like, man, I got to go get all these different AI, like all these different AI softwares. I got to go test this out. I got to go test this out. And then they spend hours and hours and hours and hours with all these ideas, right? So entrepreneurs are typically visionaries. We have no shortage of business ideas. What are ways to go change this and ways to go change that? AI is making that worse because we're sitting there and going, oh my gosh, how could I do this? Or is this, but we're not actually taking a look at, hey, what can I make better today that I go build or interpret or whatever with AI to go buy me back time right now. We're entrepreneurs are trying to solve all the world's problems with AI, and it's allowing people to be louder because they're building out this random workflow that's never going to be implemented inside their business. They're making a Loom video. They're saying, hey, this just saved me a bunch of time, made me a bunch of money. And people are like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What do you think should never be, handled by AI?
That's a great question. I still think, and we have a lot of clients that have tested out the AI agents for answering calls, and then also have clients that have done that and are now kind of reverting back to humans answering the phone again, because they were getting so many complaints and they were getting all this different backlash. And we're listening to the calls and we're saying, hey, like your customers are not very happy right now. Now, if it's after hours or all those different things, like you would not have somebody there to begin with. Yeah, it's a nice layer to be able to have there. I think most consumers are aware that that's going to be a thing. But trying to replace some of the most impactful things on client experience, on sales and answering the phone with AI 100%, I think a lot of people are going to have to course correct after getting backlash, a negative reputation and all those things. So getting back to that authenticity piece, whether it's the content, the marketing, the sales, that's still what makes you unique. If you AI all of that, everybody's doing that. So you're going to be lumped in with all the other people that are doing that too, and not have kind of that unique brand company differentiator, if that makes sense. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. No, great response. That was a tough question because there's not much you can't use AI for or with. So that was great. And I do agree with you wholeheartedly about, I think we need that personal connection, with somebody answering the phone. And we use actually VAs to answer our phone. And sometimes that's even a struggle, but, but I think that personal connection, because I think I get annoyed. I know I get annoyed, when I call something, whether it's a credit card company or whatever. And it's like, I know it's AI on the other end, it's like, I just need to speak to the operator, please. And it's like, they don't recognize my prompt. Like, dude, somebody, human, please, human, So I think, but that's where the world's going. And a lot of people are using it and it's getting smarter. And at some point in time, I'm sure it will be able to, and I know it is, at this moment now, able to speak intelligently back and have a conversation with somebody. But, so getting to, do you think AI makes trust and brand even more important than before?
I think it just amplifies what was already super important. So I think some people were like, well, do I really need to build the brand, whether it's personal or business? Do I really need to do this? Do I really need to do that? It's bringing to the forefront what I think was always a differentiator. There's just now more eyeballs and attention on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I really think if anybody out there is listening to this and they're on the fence about using AI, just know that your competition is already using it and has been for a while. I mean, we have people in this office that use AI for everything. And like you said, SOPs, creating the KPIs, the marketing, the content, the reels, the everything. So speaking of which, how do you keep from sounding, I guess, robotic? When there's so many companies out there that's using AI for marketing right now, but how can a company use AI for marketing and not sound robotic?
Don't rely solely on it. So like even for my personal brand and our business brand, I'm brain dumping ideas or feedback, anything in there. I'm saying, hey, go give me some framework here. And it'll write a whole post if you want it to. But then I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this first part. Maybe the hook is really good. Maybe the ending is really good, but I'm going to go put my own twist on it throughout. So leverage it to ideate and help you kind of formulate what you're trying to do, but don't replicate it because it's going to sound AI and easy to pick up on those things. So allow it to guide you, not drive you.
Great. No, that's good. That's so good. That was a great response to that. Yeah, for sure. Because I see a lot of stuff out there. There was, I don't know, a company I've never even heard of. And again, our market's pretty saturated with the roofing contractors and stuff like that. And there was this, I'm not going to mention any names, but I went onto their Facebook page and it was all AI. I mean, there was no personal connection whatsoever. It was horrible AI generated pictures of construction workers wearing hard hats. I mean, it was just bad. And then you can tell they were spending a lot of time on there by posting whatever content that they were putting on there, but the content wasn't very good. And that's kind of where I came up with that question, because you can obviously tell that a computer is generating all of that content. And I had realized that I feel like we're in a pretty good place right now as far as being educated and moving, as quickly as we can to stay up on the whole AI thing right now. Cause it's, roofing's a little bit barbaric. But we are trying to bring the professionalism to it too, at the same time. So anyhow, you've built, sold, stepped into, new ventures. So I want to talk to you about, what changes when you're building again, this time, I would say, with more experience. So after, you sold you sold the glass company, you sold a marketing company. So you've actually got to sell two businesses. So after selling one company, what did you see differently, this time around?
Yeah. So on the marketing company side, as I exited that in the partnership that I was in, I had no intentions originally, like when I went to them and said I want out, that I was going to start another marketing agency. But 8 months went by and I was doing some coaching, consulting, CMO stuff, whatever you want to call it. I ended up getting so many people reaching out saying, hey, like, I want to work directly with you again. And so with that lapse in time, I kind of started to think, like, if I was to go rebuild this, what are all the things I would continue to do that I liked? And what are all the things that I would do differently? And so I had some time off from doing it, and I just had a game plan from the get-go. And it's why we've been successful in growing and doing all that stuff way quicker, more efficiently, more profitable than I had it before, because it was kind of my thing, doing it the way in which I wanted to do. So that's been my biggest thing, is just getting super clear on what I want and don't want, and then going from it and running there. Now, on the other side, exiting the auto glass company, right? When I originally launched that, I was the CEO in that company, having never replaced or repaired auto glass, and making all the decisions in that while also running the marketing company back then. And so eventually I got to a point in the auto glass company where I brought in my uncle to partner with me on that company. And then we hired a manager to run that, kind of like we were talking about before, delegation, knowing what you're good at, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. And so that opened up my eyes to what would be possible when we eventually would get something like this again. So as we were exiting the auto glass company, we had the opportunity to get equity in a roofing company. And I'm really just playing the CMO seat inside of that company. And then our team is doing the behind the scenes marketing, branding, advertising, all of that stuff, where I'm not physically running that company on a day-to-day basis. I'm not located there either. I know my role. I knew if I was going to open up another company in the future in the contracting or service business space, it wasn't going to be me as the CEO. But being a business owner and playing my role has allowed me to kind of focus on what I'm good at and our team to bring our unique twist to it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Would you say it got easier the second time?
On the marketing side, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is still just as hard?
I mean, just as hard as the evolution of being a business owner at every new stage. So it took me about 15 months to hit $1 million of total revenue last time when I launched it, which in the marketing agency space is still quick. It took me about 8 months to do it this time. So I cut it down by about half, but in the 2025 calendar year, we surpassed $1 million for the first time, and we surpassed $2 million. So there's all these big milestones and growth things that are happening in a small period of time that requires me to evolutionize at a quicker rate as the business owner and as the CEO.
Yeah, I love that. Congratulations on that too. What's one? Yeah, you're welcome, man. That's a heck of a freaking goal to accomplish there. What would you say is one mistake that you'll never repeat?
Going into business with the wrong people.
Amen to that.
I mean, a lot of times you don't ask enough questions on the front end, and that's a lesson that I've learned. You trust people that you thought that you could trust, et cetera. But a lot of it comes down to not asking the right questions or seeing red flags and then ignoring them. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. So like I needed to go through that and learn from those lessons, very expensive lessons, because I wasn't at a point that I needed to be to do what I needed to do. So yes, I mean, there's all the different aspects, and everybody can name everybody, but you need to take complete ownership of your life and the decisions that you make and learn from those things so you can be better off, which is what I've done.
Amen to that, man. I've been through a couple situations myself, and each time I learned so much about myself. I've learned to ask better questions. I've learned to read the fine print. I've learned so many different things through that. And it's, it's funny, it's just one of those things with being an entrepreneur. We have to go through situations in order to become a better human being, a better business owner, better leader, and all those things. And at least for me, that's how I grow. And like you had mentioned, man, and sometimes it's very, very expensive, a very expensive lesson that we have to go through sometimes. So, but no, we have to do it. We have to go through it. But partnership is definitely it is a tough one. And I've learned that, if I'm getting in bed with somebody, I need to ask better questions, and they have to be. I need to know that they're a good fit, because I'm not a good partner. Especially if I don't have clarity. I need a lot of clarity on responsibilities and accountability and expectations. I think was a big one that I put on them and I put on myself, and they didn't align. So anyhow, all right. So to wrap this up, I want to bring it back to the audience. To the owner in the trenches trying to build something real right now. If someone is building from zero right now, what do you think they should focus on first?
So I'm going to say two things is one, just know that it's likely going to take longer than you expect to achieve a desired outcome, whether that's a revenue goal, profit goal, or whatever. And it's going to be more expensive than you originally thought to, whether that's time, sacrifices, or actual money and resources. A lot of people have a business plan, right? They have goals that they want to set. And then they get discouraged because it doesn't happen when they said it was going to happen. Very rarely does a plan come fully 100% to fruition when you thought or at the associated cost you thought it was going to happen. And you have to be okay about pivoting and making those changes and making those moves. But from there, right, is just control what you can actually control and take it one day at a time. Again, you have the big yearly goal. Well, if you're not doing on a daily basis, 365 days a year, what's required to hit that yearly goal? You're chasing a massive goal, but not focusing on one day at a time.
Yeah. Good response. Good answer, man. That's definitely so true. So true. And so what do you think the biggest mindset shift required, to go from self-employed to true business owner is that somebody has to go through?
The uncertainty and the uncomfortableness, but like being okay in that. And I struggled in the beginning, like freaking out. I don't have all the answers, or this day sucked. I lost money, I made a bad investment. I hired the wrong person. I did all that stuff. It's about controlling your ecosystem and controlling your emotions when the bad things happen, not if the bad things happen. Bad things are going to happen, but it's about how you respond to that on the other end. So I think it's the mindset of being able to sit in that uncomfortableness and not just try to get through it. Because a lot of times when situations came up and I'm like, man, this sucks, I never want to go through this again. You try to rush through that. You don't learn the lesson fully. And then eventually that same thing that happened ends up circumventing on the surface again at some point if you don't actually fix and sit in that issue.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Getting through the hard times and learning how to respond opposed to react, I think was one of the biggest things, and not showing the poor side of myself when things would go down. And I think how I learned that was watching other leaders or business owners react to something very poorly, and it's like, wow, I actually got to see myself and somebody else one time. And it was like, man, I don't want to react or respond like that. I don't want to treat other people like that because of something that is out of our control. I think, trying to keep a cool head, even if you can't, at least removing yourself from the situation for a minute to try to clear your thoughts and come back and be able to handle it, more composed was probably one of the biggest things, not making it worse by my behavior. And I've done that. Unfortunately, I've done that a lot where I've made a lot of situations that didn't have to be as bad as they were because of my behavior and how I responded to them, whether it was, homeowner owing us money to, I don't know, a lot of things I handled poorly, especially early on that I had to get through and, you learn, you live and you learn. What are you going to do?
Yep.
So, yep. Well, cool. We're in this over an hour now. Adam, this was awesome, man. I appreciate you coming back on and really breaking down, what it takes, to build from the ground up, and not just sharing your wins with us, but, the hours, the pressure, the systems and the marketing and everything that you shared with us. And especially how AI, fits into, the future of business, and that we could have probably had a podcast on just AI alone. Is there any final thoughts or anything that you want to leave our audience with?
Man, I think this is another great episode. So I appreciate you having me back on, and I love what you're doing. I love all the content that you create. I think the biggest thing is that if there was one piece that I could leave with everybody is just that, hey, if somebody else did it, you can do it too. And just because I say that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen tomorrow. But look at, again, I kind of referenced it before. Look at people and the lives that they built or the businesses that they built and maybe sold or whatever, like whatever your goals are, look at that and just know it's possible. They may have had a different situation with potentially more money, more resources or whatever, but it doesn't mean it's unattainable. And I think a lot of people say, oh, well, they had this, I can't replicate that. It's all replicatable, but you have to be willing to go do the work associated with what they did in order to get there. And to that, because you're comparing yourself to somebody else or you're looking at that, it doesn't mean that you know everything that they had to do in order to get there. There's a whole story behind the scenes with chapters that are days long that you have no idea what they had to go through in order to go do that. So don't compare yourself, but know that it's possible because they did it, and go figure out what success looks like to you.
Absolutely. Do the work that nobody else wants to do, and don't judge your insides to everybody else's outside. And just know this, if I can do this, anybody can do this. So
yes, sir.
Cool. Good stuff, man. Thank you for coming on the show. And thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of Behind the Tool Belt. Don't forget to share, like, love, subscribe. And if you got anything out of this like I did, please let us know. And we will see you next week for episode 229 of Behind the Tool Belt.
Thanks to our sponsors, TC Backer Construction, Hook Roofing Marketing, Roofle, and Project Mapit. And thank you for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. We are streaming on all major platforms. See you next week for another episode of Behind the Tool Belt.